West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
On the evening of September 12th, 2020, a 55-year-old man named Joe Beaver was walking on the shoulder of a South Dakota road. He was carrying a flashlight, likely on his way to his truck, which had broken down. And he was struck by a car and killed. The car was being driven by this man. That's Jason Ravnsborg. Just so happens to be the Attorney General of the state of South Dakota. Now, Attorney General Ravnsborg was on his phone while driving. In fact, he was reading conspiracy theories about Joe Biden and China. He put the phone down, and about a minute later, he struck and killed Joe Beaver with his car. About a minute or two after that, he called 911.
Allie, Allie, I'm the Attorney General, and I don't know, I hit something.
You hit something?
By Highmore, and it was in the middle of the road. It sure hit and bashed my windshield.
Oh, no. Okay, do you think it was a deer or something?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be.
Ravnsborg later told police he thought it was a deer, that he hit a deer, as the 911 dispatcher suggested. But watch this clip from recording of the second police interview with the Attorney General, in which they present him with evidence that the victim's glasses were found inside his car.
So, did you see the glasses right next to that?
I did not.
Okay.
You showed me the glasses the first time. The first time.
They're Joe's glasses.
I wondered about that.
So that means his face came through your windshield.
Right.
His glasses are right there, Jason. Those are Joe's.
I did not see the glasses until you showed it to me.
Sure. So the only way for them to get there is through the windshield. We also have the imprint on the hood, where his body, well, at least part of his body, likely was riding. At some point in time, he rolls off, takes out the mirror, and slides into the ditch. I want you to be really honest right now.
I am. I never saw him.
So the South Dakota Attorney General struck that man, Joe Beaver, so hard that his face came through the windshield and his glasses landed inside the Attorney General's car. And in this photo of the car, you can see the crumpled imprint of the hood the detectives referenced and the badly smashed windshield with a hole in it. The AG says that he and the sheriff who responded to his 911 call did not see the body, even though cell phone data indicates they walked right by it. That evening, the sheriff loaned Ravnsborg a car to drive home. On his way to return the car the next day, the Attorney General says he pulled over and he found the body of Joe Beaver, which he then reported to the sheriff. So what is the endgame of all this? Was Jason Ravnsborg removed from public office? Was he charged with anything? Well, I think you can see where we're going here. Yesterday, The Attorney General pleaded no contest to 2 misdemeanor traffic charges stemming from the accident. He paid $1,000 in fines, and he is still Attorney General of South Dakota. Tom Clute is a journalist who wrote perhaps the most definitive piece on this bizarre and tragic saga for Vanity Fair, and he joins me now. Tom, first just tell us a little bit about who Ravnsborg is, what his reputation is, what kind of politician he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's still a relative unknown. He ran for public office for the first time in 2014 in what was a quixotic bid for U.S. Senate. He finished last in the Republican primary that year. But, in a state of this size with fewer than 1 million people, you can really pound pavement. You can cultivate these meaningful contacts and build a name for yourself that way. And he did that in the interval. And by 2018, 4 years after that Senate bid, he was elected Attorney General. It helped that he had an R next to his name. Democrats haven't had an AG here since the 70s. It really is a state that's dominated by one party rule. And so he's a pretty garden variety conservative. He's definitely towed the line with Trump. And he just has conducted himself as you'd expect a Republican attorney general in these parts would.
We should note that he was one of the attorneys general who joined that Texas lawsuit seeking to essentially block the electoral votes of 4 other states that would have overturned the election. So this happens. Now, let's just, the key detail here that's so crazy to me is he hits this man, he calls 911 and claims he doesn't know what he hit, and then doesn't go to check that night. It's the next day that he, on the way back to return this loaner car, pulls over and discovers the body. Is that correct?
Well, it's partially correct. I mean, he claims to have conducted a search that night with his cell phone flashlight. And in that video that you showed with the special agents from North Dakota, that was a huge source of skepticism for them. They kept noting that the victim's body was lily white. He'd been stripped of his clothing over the course of the crash. And that, if he had been using his cell phone flashlight, that would have illuminated the body. Not to mention the victim's flashlight itself, which those agents referred to as a beacon. In their recreation of the scene, they went back out there, they placed the flashlight where it was, and in their own words, it was basically unmissable. And so I think that's what's fueling a lot of the skepticism surrounding Ravnsborg's account here. I mean, for one, in South Dakota, you live here long enough, you drive the roads, invariably you're going to have a brush with wildlife on the highway. You just are. You're going to have a close call with a deer or a raccoon. You're going to hit one yourself. And it's a pretty unmistakable experience. And there are a lot of telltale signs to that, namely animal fur on the grill. And all of that was absent. And so I think that you also have to point to, what Ravnsborg himself said in the 911 call, the ambiguity in what he tells the dispatcher. Yes. He didn't say he hit an animal. He said he hit something. It wasn't about a minute until into the conversation that the dispatcher floated that as a possibility. And so, taken all together, you just have this sense that something isn't adding up. It's been very difficult to find many people who are sympathetic to Ravnsborg's version of events. You talk to people anecdotally over the course of my reporting. It just doesn't pass the smell test for them that he didn't have at least an inkling that he hit a man that night.
It is Monday, the 30th of August of 2021. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. That's right. We do it on Mondays because of everything that happened over the weekend. Yeah. Repurpose it? You can call it what you want. We call it River City Hash. That's right. We have it on Mondays. All right. So, the fallout from Biden's horrendously disorganized bug out from Afghanistan continues. If you read the media or listen to them, read them, boy, it's chaotic. It's just not happening. And we're going to be bumping. I'm serious. We're going to be bumping about 200,000 by tomorrow. Could be the end of tomorrow. Do we get that much time? And so I'm just saying. This is very reminiscent of maybe Citizen Kane. I don't know. What? Well, at least the part where the Hearst personage in the person of Orson Welles. Yeah, hi there, Citizen Kane. That, started a war with, yellow journalism. Look that one up. You don't need to. You already know. And so now we live in the world of Fox News, which is the height of yellow journalism, and everybody else has followed suit? Or was it always there? Just maybe suppressed under the surface, waiting to burst out, like in The Alien? I don't know. Or could it be like a daisy? Ah, boy. So, we got that going for us, which is nice. No, it's not. I feel sorry for the families of those 20-year-olds that are being brought back in body bags. Well, maybe that's being hyperbolic, but they're coming back dead, and they didn't need to be. And I'm not blaming Joe Biden for that. Who is to blame? Well, I don't know. Can we go get the guy who does the paint-by-number dog paintings? Jeez. And even that looks schmaltzy. It does. Schmaltzy? I don't know. Maybe that's not the term, but it looks schmaltzy to me. Paint-by-number dogs. And everybody touts him as some sort of artist. No, he's a war criminal. Jeez. God, I hate that. Oh, boy. And everybody's now going... When I say everybody, I mean everybody in the media. They're now going to all the architects of everything that went wrong to ask what they think that Joe Biden should do. Well, of course they're going to go there. All right. So, in spite of the fact that Joe has been able to airlift, and I'm thinking about 200K when it's all said and done, in 10 to 14 days, that is an astounding number. That's never been done. Let's just put it that way. But that's going to be discounted. People aren't even going to know about it. Yeah. What's that? Nothing. Meh. Drop candy bars over Berlin. What was going to be East Berlin. Drop candy bars over there. That's still in the annals of aviation history as one of the great astounding feats of aviation. Dropping candy bars. I mean, granted, they had little parachutes. But still. Almost 200,000. That's not going to mean anything. In fact, it's already forgotten. Because what is happening in a Twitter war right now on my timeline is that, David Hogg, you know David Hogg, he came out and twittered something that if Joe Biden doesn't pay off my student debt or grant me pardon on my student debt, then I'm going to make sure that the youth vote doesn't go for Joe Biden, and you're going to lose. Get rid of. Okay, come on. First of all, normally a college kid, their voice wouldn't be so outsized. Now we know that David Hogg survived an horrendous incident at his high school. A murderous incident, a mass shooting. His friends died all around him. But, still a kid. He does come from the right part of the spectrum. I'm not saying that he was always like that, but his family is, so, let's be clear. Okay? So, there's been some speculation about, blaming Joe Biden for not, freeing up all student debt. So, this little flame war that's going on is counting in quite large numbers for my timeline. Just saying. Nobody's talking about Afghanistan. We've already forgotten about it, haven't we? Well, that's us. 20 years. Let's forget about it in a week. Not even that. Let's complain about Joe not giving blanket amnesty on student debt. Well, first of all, to do that, I think it would be nice to maybe go after the companies that touted this financial scheme to defraud people of their money under the guise of education. Oh, I know. It means we have to collapse a whole system. Well, too bad. In fact, even in my timeline, somebody said, college for everyone shouldn't be free. And I'm like, yeah, but it was. It was when I went. People could choose to go pay a fee at USC and get their degree. And that's why you went to those big schools. You paid your fee to get your degree. You usually went to school where you didn't have to pay a fee, so you get an actual education. Okay, I'm just saying. If you could afford to pay the fee to get your degree, you're not going to take humanities. You're going to take some fast track like, I don't know, business. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I don't consider business to be part of a classical education. You can learn on the job. That's why they call it that. It's not personal. It's business. All right, well, enough of that. What else is going on in the world? Well, at the top, of course, as we get into the curated part of the show, we're going to give you a rundown on that because there is a curated part, no matter whether it's Monday or not. And it is Monday. River City Hash Mondays, by the way. Well, the only way that South Dakota Attorney General avoided prison and stayed in office after fatally hitting a pedestrian with his car is because he's a Republican. Now, I suppose you could say, yeah, but everybody in South Dakota is a Republican. And white, too, if you don't count the indigenous population. Or anybody else who happened to move there that's not white or Republican. But they are a very, 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 very small number compared to, well, the colonial power that's been entrenched there since, when they moved over there in wagon trains. Started building sod houses. Mm-hmm. And you just can't get rid of them. Once they root into a sod house, it's hard to get rid of them. They grow like weeds. Indeed. And now we got this guy hitting people with his car while reading conspiracy theories about Joe Biden on his phone. Who does that? Well, I guess everybody. You're on a farm road out in the middle of nowhere. See some guy walking by the side of the road with a flashlight, or you don't see the guy walking along the road with a flashlight, hit him. He comes into your car head first. Loses his glasses in there. Big old dent in your car. Oh, well, somebody said it might have been a deer. Well, you know what? It could have been a deer. Yeah, dear God, you got caught. But this guy wriggled his way out of it because he is, after all, the Attorney General of the state. And when you've got, a state of like a little less than 1 million, the intelligence pool is rather limited. And those that rise to the top may not necessarily be the most empathetic individuals to achieve such stature. All right. 2 tiers of justice, and I'm not talking about me. Nope. We're talking about the law, and this is another example of that, isn't it? Some people would say it's like white privilege, and I would say it's not like white privilege. It is white privilege. Come on. Can you imagine somebody from the Sioux Indian tribe, the Oglala or the Lakota, driving along, hitting some guy with a flashlight in the middle of the night? Do you think that person could call up 911 and say, hey, I'm the leader of this sovereign nation, and I hit something. I don't know what it was. Oh, dear. It could have been a deer. Oh, yeah, it could have been a deer. They would have come out there and first charged them for poaching. Okay, I'm just saying. Then they would have charged them with premeditated murder. You charge up and then you negotiate down. Not with this guy. Okay. I guess they had bigger fish to fry, like finding out who Antifa is and stop them from making everybody wear masks. That's the importance of why that guy has to remain in office. What's on the rest of the menu? Speaking of which, after constant threats of physical violence by white nationalist anti-vaxxers who also won't wear a mask, school board members across the nation are calling it quits. In other words, the terrorists win. Despite CDC warnings, an Ohio judge ordered a hospital to treat an unvaccinated COVID-19 patient with the horse dewormer. Has anybody told this judge that the horse dewormer is for parasites? COVID-19 is a virus? Apparently not. I guess judges don't need to take a science class when they're getting fast-tracked to some mail-order Federalist Society judgeship online course. Apparently. And Biden's unprecedented Supreme Court losses has prompted more scrutiny of the court's shadow docket. It's like a star chamber almost. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the director of the Estonian National Museum will be the sole contender for the presidency. Oh, wow. And a team of Arctic researchers from Denmark have discovered the world's northernmost island located off Greenland's coast, which means only one thing. There's been some glacier melt. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Give a little program note here. I did make an appearance on Tim Cormall's show once again, and it will be rebroadcast at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Figure out the time in your time zone, 4 p.m. Pacific, West Coast Pacific time. Okay, so a fun time was had by all, so check it out. And also, if you happen to miss the rebroadcast at 4 p.m. Pacific time, you can always get podcasts for Tim's show at his page at timcormall.com. Go there. All right. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page, is the chat room link. The chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thanks you, Kelly. Thank you. If you would look across the page to the left from the chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, there is the Patreon link, and you know what to do. That's right. This is almost like a broken record, but it's not broken. It just keeps going on and on and on. And yes, I know. We have to pay our bills, and we make this constant plea for funds because we are really a tiny powerhouse of resistance. But we still have to pay our bills, and we get help from you in the form of, how about an espresso-type coffee drink that you would send those funds for to us once a month, and then we stretch those dollars beyond compare, pay our bills, fly under the radar, and continue this powerhouse of resistance against the powers arrayed against representative democracy. And that sounds like a joke, but we take our work quite seriously here. Yeah, we have some gallows humor, but that's how you survive it. So thank you for your generosity, and thank you for considering being generous in the future, because trust me, costs and bills keep increasing. I haven't gotten one notice yet that says, oh, guess what? We're reducing your bill. Not one. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so simply by going to @Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom, for making it simple and for everything that you do as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. Now, I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Coves. And that comes out about 10 minutes before showtime. And then I know I'm quite deficient in getting it posted on Twitter at Justice Putnam and other social media platforms. But I get it up. Wait, I'll back up here. I'm going to back up. I get it posted. I do. But I have to manually do that, and I guess there's a way to do it so that you get the show notes and links in their form so that you know what they are on social media. But this is handcrafted, as I say. So anyway, you can follow me on Twitter, and that's the way you do it. And you can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And please pick up podcasts, and you forego all of this. Or no, you get to hear it all again. But pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and really wherever podcasts can be found. All right. Well, it's Monday, so we get our bearings once again. Yes, we do. And one way to get our bearings is to talk about local government. And there is a move afoot by Proud Boys specifically in this region of the West to take over small-town governments in the form of planning boards, zoning, school boards, etc., etc., etc. And it's getting rather raucous, which is a nice way of saying a riot seems to want to break out every time these type of people show up. And it's gotten really bad. This first offering, then, for, in the Bistro Cafe, I'll get it this Monday, in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by Carolyn Thompson. A Nevada school board member said he had thoughts of suicide before stepping down amid threats and harassment. In Virginia, a board member resigned over what she saw as politics driving decisions on masks. The vitriol at board meetings in Wisconsin had one member fearing he would find his tires slashed. School board members are largely unpaid volunteers, traditionally former educators and parents who step forward to shape school policy, choose a superintendent, and review the budget. But a growing number are resigning or questioning their willingness to serve as meetings have devolved into shouting contests between deeply political constituencies over how racial issues are taught, masks in schools, and COVID-19 vaccines and testing requirements. Gee, it used to be just about burning books before. These are the books we're going to burn, and these are the books we're not going to burn. And they'd argue about, maybe it's not good to burn books. And you'd have the book burners in there telling them, we're not going to let our kids read Alice in Wonderland. That's devil talk. Burn it. Now look where we are. In his letter of resignation from Wisconsin's Oconomowoc Area School Board, Rick Grothaus said his work had become toxic and impossible to do. When I got on, I knew it would be difficult, Grothaus, a retired educator, said by phone, but I was not ready or prepared for the vitriolic response that would occur, especially now that the pandemic seemed to just bring everything out in a very, very harsh way. It made it impossible to do really any kind of meaningful work. He resigned on August 15th, along with two other members, including Dan Rosh, who wondered if his car and windshield would be intact after meetings. The National School Boards Association's interim executive director, Chip Slavin, said there is not evidence of widespread departures, but he and several board members reached by the AP said the charged political climate that has seeped from the national stage into their meetings has made a difficult job even more challenging, if not impossible. Well, that's a nice way of saying that Donald Trump destroys everything that he touches. Now, doesn't it? Yes, it does. In Vail, Arizona, speakers at a recent meeting took turns blasting school board members over masks, vaccines, and discussions of race in schools, even though the board had no plans to act on or even discuss any of those topics. It's my constitutional right to be as mean as I want to you guys, one woman said. Well, indeed. Do you live in the district? Do you have children? The board moved on after more than an hour, only to be interrupted by more shouting. Board member Allison Pratt recalled thinking that if she weren't already on the board, she would not aspire to be. Now, notice how they talk about it's both sides that are doing this. No, it's one side doing this. It's the Nazis. It's the good Republicans like the good Germans of old. Please. The only people whining about the talk of race are racist. Let's get clear on that. The only people whining about wearing masks are the ones who refuse to and mock anyone who does. The only one whining and screaming at these school board meetings are there to destroy representative democracy. They are foot soldiers, they are stormtroopers, and they're goose-stepping all over America. Zuckerman of the Ohio Capital Journal, by way of raw story, brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. A Butler County judge ruled in favor of a woman last week who sought to force a hospital to administer ivermectin, an animal dewormer that federal regulators have warned against using in COVID-19 patients, to her husband after several weeks in the ICU with the disease. Butler County Common Pleas Judge Gregory Howard ordered Westchester Hospital, part of the University of Cincinnati network, to treat Jeffrey Smith, age 51, with ivermectin. The order, filed August 23rd, compels the hospital to provide Smith with 30 milligrams of the horse dewormer daily for 3 weeks. Now, I'm confused. The judge is a doctor practicing medicine. The drug was originally developed to deworm livestock animals before doctors began using it against parasitic disease among humans. And several researchers won a Nobel in 2015 for establishing its efficacy in humans. It is used to treat head lice, river blindness, and other parasitic diseases. Parasites, bloodsuckers, parasites. Both the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the CDC have warned Americans against using ivermectin to treat COVID-19, a viral disease. It is unproven as a treatment, they say, and large doses of it can be dangerous and cause serious harm, like you don't have a liver. Just saying. A review of the available literature conducted earlier this month by the journal Nature found there is no certainty in the available data on potential benefits of ivermectin. The drug has grown in popularity among conservatives, fueled by endorsements from allies from Trump, Ron Johnson, and Fox News personalities Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity. The CDC warned reports of poisoning related to the use of ivermectin have increased 3-fold this year, spiking in July. Now, Julie Smith filed a lawsuit on behalf of her husband of 24 years. He tested positive for COVID-19 on July 9th, was hospitalized, and admitted to the ICU on July 15th, was sedated and intubated, and placed on a ventilator on August 1st. He later developed a secondary infection he's still wrestling with as of August 23rd, court records say. Now, the lawsuit does not mention whether Jeffrey Smith is vaccinated against COVID-19. However, overwhelming majorities of people currently hospitalized with COVID-19 are unvaccinated, which is a nice way of saying that everybody in the ICU is unvaccinated. And data from the Ohio Department of Health shows roughly 21,000 Ohioans hospitalized with COVID-19 since January 1st, with only about 500 vaccinated. Lawrence Hurley of Reuters brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. President Joe Biden's administration was dealt a double blow by the conservative majority Supreme Court this week, raising new questions about how the justices handle cases brought via an emergency process known as the shadow docket. The court in recent years has increasingly made substantive decisions on major issues via the shadow docket, deciding quickly and sometimes late at night in a process that critics from across the ideological spectrum say lacks transparency. The administration of Biden's Republican predecessor, Donald Trump, did very well with the process, winning a wide majority of the cases it brought through the emergency applications. Some experts attributed that to a court that has traditionally been deferential to the White House. This week's decisions have raised questions as to whether a Democratic president receives the same friendly reception from a court with a 6-3 conservative majority. What we are seeing are the consequences of a deeply conservative court with the added travesties of the shadow docket, said Elizabeth Wydra, president of the Constitutional Accountability Center, a liberal nonprofit based in Washington. The court, in a decision on Thursday night, ended the pandemic-related federal moratorium on residential evictions imposed by Biden's administration. That came 2 days after a Tuesday evening decision denying Biden's bid to rescind an immigration policy implemented by Trump that forced thousands of asylum seekers to stay in Mexico awaiting U.S. hearings. That decision requires the government to revive Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, formerly known as the Migrant Protection Protocols. In both cases, the three liberals on the court dissented. Trump won 28 of the 41 cases his administration brought via the shadow docket, which his administration turned to at a much higher rate than those of both Republican President George Bush and Democratic President Barack Obama. The Remain in Mexico request was the first request made by Biden, who faces a court with which he is ideologically out of sync. Indeed. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, will you want to remember? No one can accuse Hugh Jackman of shying away from challenging roles. Between musicals and Marvel, he's done picks like The Prestige and The Fountain. In his latest, Reminiscence, the question is whether the challenge results from the demands of the character or the way the project was conceived and executed. It's the directorial debut of Lisa Joy, best known for her work on Westworld, with production help from Jonathan Nolan, brother of Christopher. Reminiscence is ambitious. Part neo-noir thriller, part post-apocalyptic sci-fi, part crime procedural, and part psychological romance. The story concerns ex-soldier Nick, Jackman's character, and his also veteran sidekick Emily, Thandie Newton, who operate a business in an overheated, flooded Miami, helping clients relive memories. They have drugs, an immersion tank, and a hollow projector to assist in the effort. One night after closing, May, Rebecca Ferguson, walks in for a session, supposedly to find lost keys. Nick falls for her big time, much to the chagrin of Emily, who, despite her misgivings, sidekicks her way through the story, which starts in earnest after May suddenly vanishes. What this one has in the way of a cool idea, wonderful set design and cinematography, it loses in the lack of character development and heavy-handed narration. Both these issues are due to the sprawling nature of the narrative. We get hints of characters with interesting backstories, but too much is going on too fast to delve into them. The narration is an ill-conceived way to guide the thing through to its too many endpoints. As a concept and cautionary tale, there are reasons to watch this one. Had Joy stuck with the format with which she's familiar, the multi-episode series, Reminiscence could have been truly killer. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Maddie Bender. In Central Texas, in the back of a blacked-out government bus, 3 health workers stood over coughing patients. They had 10 minutes to put on personal protective equipment and perform nasal swabs on the infected.
So just right here, sir, can we go back down and kind of twirl us around? I'm so sorry. Okay. And then we're going to do one on the other side, and that'll be it. All right, you did good.
This, sadly, might sound like a voice we've heard over the last year as we've received a nasal swab for COVID-19.
Talk to us a little bit about how you were feeling throughout this entire scenario with these patients who are coughing, and we don't know what this virus is.
Very nervous. I was scared because I didn't know, exactly what to do.
The thing is, none of this was real. The patients were mannequins, and this was done in 2019. But it sure turned out to be prescient. And, more importantly, according to new research, it helped a healthcare system prepare for when an actual deadly pandemic arrived in the U.S. in 2020. All because of escape rooms and zombies. Chances are you've been to or heard about escape rooms, which are timed games where teams find clues and solve puzzles, with the goal of getting out of a room. Today, there are tens of thousands of them worldwide. But in 2017, Christy Causey and Grace Boseman wanted to bring a different kind of escape room to the Central Texas Veterans Healthcare System to highlight the importance of hand washing and proper use of personal protective equipment, or PPE. 2 years and 5 iterations later, they changed the theme of the room to pandemic influenza. But when they were first starting out, they took inspiration from a popular TV show at the time.
We had zombie sounds playing throughout the room, simulated blood that we had placed on the walls. Somebody donated a projector that had zombies kind of looking like they were trying to come through a window, so we put that up.
That's Causey, whose official role is the simulation educator for the Central Texas Veterans Healthcare System. She says that boring PowerPoints to teach clinicians about infection prevention simply weren't cutting it. So when Boseman came to her with the idea for a zombie-themed escape room, she says it was a no-brainer. If a novel approach.
We started looking for articles, and at that time we found only one article in the literature that said they'd even attempted to do an escape room within a healthcare setting.
Causey and Boseman wanted to draw attention to highly effective infection prevention practices and what happens when you don't follow them.
When they peel off the dressing of a wound, Kirsty pushes a button, and whoever is close by gets sprayed with water.
That's Boseman, an infection prevention specialist at the Central Texas VA. PPE adherence wasn't just taught through jump scares. The duo incorporated best practices into the very fabric of their escape rooms. For instance, Causey and Boseman noticed that clinicians often suit up without checking their gear, so they wrote one of the clues on a disposable glove. They taped a capsule with another clue to the base of a sink so that it would fall out when participants went to wash their hands. According to Boseman, it was important that the learning didn't end in the room. She and Causey led staff through a debrief where they talked about PPE do's and don'ts. But they wanted to do more than just tell them. They wanted to show how pathogens can spread without effective PPE. They spread dollar store dish soap laced with fluorescent glow germ over surfaces and mannequins. Listen what happened when they shone a UV light on participants' gloves and gowns after a round in their 6th escape room held in 2019, just months before the real pandemic hit.
Okay, so we're going to turn out the lights now.
So now for the moment of truth. Let's take a look at your gloves and your PPE to see if you have any on your. So stick your hands out for me and let's see. So you've got some spots there. Wow.
So you mean if I didn't have this on, I would take this home?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Oh my.
Did the flashy demonstration work long term, though? Causey and Boseman sent around a survey to escape room participants. 3 months after the experience, 61% of staff said they were washing their hands more because of the activity. The pair presented these results recently at the annual meeting of the Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology. Boseman says that ironically, many of the participants thought the fictitious premise of their 2019 escape room was unlikely to ever happen in real life.
The scenario that we had for the flu bus was that we were overrun by patients in our facility, so we had to transport them to Dallas. And that really happened a year later when we got the second surge of COVID in our facility, and we really did have to transfer patients to our Dallas facility.
Due to the pandemic, the pair had to put the rooms on pause. But with vaccinations on the rise, they're hopeful that they can bring the room back in time for October. With a few changes, of course.
We're running out of clues. So we need to get more creative.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Maddie Bender.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Do you follow Rule 11?
Listen up. This matters. I'm Louis Black, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
A federal district court judge in Michigan has ruled that 9 lawyers representing Donald Trump should be sanctioned for filing and litigating a lawsuit that asserted fraud in the 2020 presidential election. Fraud such as voting machines mysteriously being tampered with by a weird set of characters from Venezuela, and ballots being counted twice, and election totals being changed by hand, among other claims. The problem with these claims? There was no evidence to support any of them or any possible legal theory. The problem with the lawyers? They didn't bother to find out whether there was or could be any basis in fact or law for their claims. By failing their obligation of minimal due diligence, the judge found that the lawyers violated Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11, which prohibits lawyers from saying things in court papers that they know aren't true or have no basis, as well as a federal law that prohibits frivolous claims and vexatious litigation. The ruling says that the lawyers will face investigations in their home states and possible disbarment, because while lawyers should zealously represent their clients, they should also act with integrity. And as the judge wrote, this case was never about fraud. It was about undermining people's faith in our democracy and debasing our judicial process to do so.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the American Civil Liberties Union, because freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1907. That was the day labor leader Luisa Moreno was born in Guatemala City. As a young woman, she fought for the admission of women into Guatemalan universities. After attending journalism school in Mexico City, Luisa moved to New York with her husband and worked as a seamstress. Outraged by low pay, racial discrimination, and poor working conditions, she led organizing efforts on the job. During the Great Depression, she worked as a full-time union organizer, first with the AFL, organizing black and Latina cigar rollers in Florida. But she also became active with the Communist Party and joined CIO efforts to organize cannery workers. Luisa led unionizing efforts of pecan shelling women workers in San Antonio, Texas, and then of cannery workers in Los Angeles. In 1938, Luisa helped organize the Spanish-speaking People's Congress. During World War II, she fought against discrimination in hiring of Mexicans in oil and war-related industries. In the 1940s, she became centrally involved in high-profile legal defense cases of Mexican-American youth prosecuted on frame-up charges. These included work around the 1942 Sleepy Lagoon case and then of victims of the Zoot Suit riots a year later. She continued union work in California, helping to organize and represent walnut pickers. By 1950, she was caught in the crosshairs of the McCarthy-era witch hunts. Luisa was targeted by Operation Wetback and offered citizenship status in return for testimony against radical labor leader Harry Bridges. When she refused, she faced deportation on the accusation that she had once been a member of the Communist Party. She returned to Guatemala and continued organizing workers throughout Central America. Luisa Moreno died in Guatemala in 1992. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. You know, we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 59 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting only a high of 83, and we are still in an active air quality alert. We are going to forego the local forecast and get right into weather from around the world, because we all know there's a hurricane and the remnants of such in the Gulf Coast, and maybe people should watch the weather for that. And let's do what we can to alleviate the pain and suffering for the people trapped there. Let's see. London currently is 62 and cloudy. Rome is 72 and cloudy. I'm sorry. Paris is 72 and cloudy. Rome is 83 and fair. Kyiv is 80 and fair. Kabul is 73 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 80 and fair. Tokyo is 83 and fair. Sydney, Australia is 55 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 55 and cloudy. And New York is 78 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Estonia is gearing up for an unusual presidential election in Parliament. There will be only one candidate in today's vote, a situation unprecedented since the Baltic nation regained its independence 30 years ago. President Kirsti Kaljulaid, a 5-year term expires on October 10th, and lawmakers in the 101-seat parliament must elect a new head of state to replace her in the largely ceremonial post. As no further candidates registered by late Saturday's deadline, the director of the Estonian National Museum, Alar Karas, will be the sole contender. Karas, a former state auditor, is the only one who has managed to get support from the required minimum of 21 lawmakers. Holding a vote with only one candidate has flummoxed the country, and several politicians have called for a complete overhaul of Estonia's complex presidential election system. Some Estonians have even suggested that the small European nation where the Prime Minister holds most political power should just abolish the head of state post altogether.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Associated Press staff bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. A team of Arctic researchers from Denmark say they accidentally discovered what they believe is the world's northernmost island, located off Greenland's coast. The scientists from the University of Copenhagen initially thought they had arrived at Udak, an island discovered by a Danish survey team in 1978 to collect samples during an expedition that was conducted in July. Instead, they wound up on an undiscovered island further north. We were convinced that the island we were standing on was Udak, which until then was registered as the world's northernmost island, said expedition leader Morten Rasch. But when I posted photos of the island and its coordinates on social media, a number of American island hunters went crazy and said that it could not be true, he said in a statement on Friday. Island hunters are known as adventurers whose hobby it is to search for unknown islands. The yet-to-be-named island is 850 yards north of Udak, an island off Cape Morris Jessup, the northernmost point of Greenland and one of the most northerly points of land on Earth. The tiny island, apparently discovered as a result of shifting pack ice, is about 30 by 60 meters or 100 by 200 feet in size and rises to about 10 to 13 feet above sea level. The research team reportedly does not consider the discovery to be the result of climate change and has allegedly proposed naming the island Kortertak Avanurlek, which means the northernmost island in Greenlandic. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, and we will meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.